My friends, it has been a long week at One Bills Drive. So much so that it feels like we've lived 100 lifetimes in just this week. The Bills dropped their divisional round playoff matchup to the Denver Broncos on what was a variety of mistakes and controversial calls. And then after that game, we find out that Sean McDermott was fired by the organization as they look for their next head coach to steer the ship in what is hopefully the correct and proper direction. We're going to talk about all of the events from this past week tonight on this week's episode of Under Review. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy and find some good in what has been a very bleak week. But without further ado, let's go.
Previous play will go under review.
Citizens of Earth, lend me your eyes, lend me your ears, and thank you so much once again for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. My name is Joe DeRosa. Tonight's tagline is Joe-verbial playoff wall. You could probably imagine why. We have a lot to cover on tonight's episode, and by we, I never just mean me. I have a guest joining me, one of my favorite guests to bring on the show, one of my favorite people to talk to about Bills football and football in general. You have seen him here multiple times. One of the brightest minds we have in our space, Mr. Anthony Prohaska, game script enthusiast. Man, how you doing?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you as always, and for the kind words as well. Thank you. I'm all right. I'm frustrated. I'm tired more than anything. I really what's the meme? I think it's from the Green Mile, which I've never seen. The I'm tired boss meme or GIF. That's how I feel. Like I'm tired, boss. Like I'm tired, man.
The one from Holes where it's I'm tired of this.
Oh yeah, that's too damn bad. Holes is mad underrated. Holes is a really clever book. Good movie. I think part of it is like end of season fatigue. Like I always get to this point, like, and then Senior Bowl's happening next week. I'm not going this year because I'm swamped with work, but I'm still starting to like diving into college tape. So I'm just like, I'm tired from that. And then I'm just tired of this team and then the direction and the yearly losing. I found myself just staring into the void after they lost Saturday night. And then my mom is calling me on Sunday. She's like, I can't anymore. I can't watch this team. Like everything is just falling apart. But I don't know. We have to move on with the team. We have to move on with the show and in our coverage. And it's tough, man. How are you? It's just a sigh. How are you?
Yeah. So here's where I was at when the game ended. I was seeing red. I'm in really,
tears.
really
I'm in a ball. Fetal position.
Yeah. I am. So there I am, curled up on the ground, looking for anything to keep me going. But the reality wasn't far from that. I was sitting on the couch. You could see this was literally right where I was watching. And I want to add, yes, I know you see Christmas stuff. Let me just have the holiday joy as long as I can. Yeah. See, you got yours, but like, let me have this. Okay. Just let me have this. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game. I'm seeing red. I am just as angry as possible just because for the game to end. Now, I'm not going to say it was a bad call. It wasn't a bad call. That pass interference is a fair call. The problem I have is we need to stop rewarding underthrown footballs, something that I have hated. And when a game ends that way, it makes me so mad. It really just ruins everything.
It's so hollow. Such a black way to be like, oh, really? Yeah.
Yes. So the game itself just found every assailable way to pull the strings and make you pissed off. Like if the Bills had just opened up that half and just laid a complete egg, I would have been fine because I was saying that.
I wish they would have just got killed like 34-10 or something. Like just don't lead me on.
My father, anytime we talk about like, because we're both Yankee fans, and when the Yankees lose like a heartbreaking loss, I know. Ugh. So when they have a heartbreaking loss and we talk on the phone, his tried and true line is, dude, I just wish they got killed. I just wish they got killed. And I wish they got killed because it was really hard to watch another loss like that. And this team just finds ways to get creative with the way they lose.
They make it an art form.
Yes. We are always on the wrong side of a game of the year, but that's even more true in the playoffs. It just happens to be that they get these marginal calls from margins they create, which we'll talk about. and it ends up screwing them and they lose the game. So I was really upset. I was really dejected. And after it ended, I feel so bad for everyone in our network because I was just going ham in the chat. I sent like an essay and Eric, I think, said something like, I'm not reading that.
Oh, dude.
Which is so funny. But like, it was really just, I was ready to move on. I was ready for change. I was ready for something new. Then they fire McDermott, but promote Brandon Beane. And the optics of the situation just made me feel worse because even if I thought McDermott should go, I thought it should have been a package deal. And it's been a mess. It's just, there's no other way to put it. It's been a mess. I don't think it's as bad as some are making it out to be, but I don't think it's good either. There is a middle ground I'm trying to take here, but it still could have been handled so much better as far as how the firing went, how the optics of it went, how the presser went, so many things. So, Ant, thank you for asking. I mean, give me your thoughts on really the end of the game, the Sean McDermott firing, the events of this past week, just where you're at right now.
Man, Allen turns the ball over to. So let me take you back. This is kind of funny because I really haven't told anyone this. Not that it's some like big revelatory thing. Denver scores at the end of the first half, the touchdown, and so they go to kick to the Bills. I get up because I'm just assuming, all right, half's about to be over. It is what it is. I go to the bedroom. I forget to grab something, and I come back out, and Denver has the ball and is lining up for a field goal. And I yelled at my wife. I'm like, what the hell happened? And she was like, I was in the kitchen. I wasn't paying attention to the TV. I was like, how does Denver have the ball?
Yeah.
And I sat down and I rewind it and I see Allen's turnover. I'm just like, God. And then the second half starts and he gets strip sacked by Benito. And I'm like, oh, this is bad. Because they were really rolling. And I'm thinking they're moving the ball and then Cook fumbles. But I'm thinking they're going to go up 10-3 or 14-3. Here we go. But no, Denver gets the ball. It ends up being 10-7. Things kind of go from there. And I'm just sitting back thinking about that Cook fumble. And then the second half starts. And I'm annoyed I'm already like, hope that 3 points at the end of the first half doesn't come back to kill him, which it did. And then Allen turns the ball over. And I'm like, great. But then the defense holds. And there was a part of me that I was like, this could be the moment. The Bills defense has stepped it up. They've been blitzing and attacking every second half. I've talked about it on Twitter a ton. I've talked about it on my shows a ton. I'm like, it's still not bad. I'm like a 13-point deficit with like 28 minutes or 29 minutes left to go in the second half. I was like, that's mad time. It can be fine. And then it kind of was. And this is when it all kind of went away from me. When Allen skipped that pass to Khalil Shakir on third down when they were up 24-23 in the low red zone. He skips that pass to Shakir that likely is a first down, maybe a touchdown, and they go up 27-23 instead of scoring a touchdown and being able to go up 31-23.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that's maybe it's the paranoia.
Yeah.
Or the pessimism, growing up as a Bills and a Red Sox fan. And I always put the disclaimer out there. Yes, I know the Red Sox have won multiple World Series in my lifetime, but growing up as a Red Sox fan, I am secure in nothing, just like I am. The Bills could win the next 10 Super Bowls in a row. I will never feel secure in anything. And I was like, oh, that's a problem. And it sat like a stone in my gut. But then I was I'm like, okay, you know what? The defense stood up against Jacksonville. They can do that here. They've played a really good second half. They played on the front foot. They've been blitzing. They've been attacking. Okay, here we go. They can quiet and silence all the doubters. The storyline will be 3 points in the entire second half. The defense shuts the door and lets the offense come back, yada, yada. We finally get a complete half that we should have had against Atlanta and all these other games that they lost, like the Philly game. And then the Broncos drive right down. Highlighted by a 3rd and 11 where Cole Bishop takes tries to jump a flare route from the running back and Cortland Sutton comes behind him on a dig route, part of a dagger concept. So the top gets cleared off. Sutton's open. They go. And then, I was still kind of believing in overtime. They get the stop and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the interception happens, which in real time I thought was an interception. I also thought Josh Allen could have led him a bit more. So that way, small, tiny Brandon Cooks doesn't have to wait for it and jump back. And doesn't have to wait and try and jump through McMillan to make the catch. But to his credit, Cooks made a good play. I also think, and this hasn't been talked about enough, because I've heard some people saying, oh, he should have sold it more like he made the catch. I think he got hurt on the way down. Like, I don't know if it was his head or his shoulder.
Yeah.
Because, like, after McMillan gets it, like, he's just kind of, like, laying. He has to, like, scrape himself up off the ground. Like,
Looked like he
I
got
think
the wind knocked out of him.
could be fair.
Yeah.
So something where he wasn't feeling great. But in real time, I thought it was an interception. But then after all these still shots and other angles, now I'm like, okay, 55-45, it might have been a catch, although I still think you can make the case either way. But like you mentioned earlier, like, it should have even been that way. All these turnovers and poor plays. But then I also think of that too, like all these turnovers and injuries and all of that. And you still only lost by 3. So I was like kind of looking at the positive and the bright side, but I was still gutted for another stupid art form type of loss that got me. The penalties on the last drive were just so annoying for a game where they were pretty much letting everybody play, including Riley Moss.
Yes,
on a throw to Brandon
that was
Cooks in the
blatant
end
pass
zone.
interference,
Yes.
and I'm very upset about
and
that.
Moss has been called on pass interference all year, but they decide to keep it. They keep the flag in their pocket for that one. So I'm thinking, okay, it's playoff football. We're letting them play. Granted, I think the one on Trey was pass interference.
Yes. Just stupid underthrown ball and no offensive pass interference for slowing down on a route. I can't stand it.
And as a defensive person, that always gets me. I hate rewarding the offense for underthrown balls. I hate that pass interference is a spot foul. I want it to be the college rule where it's a 15-yard penalty instead of a true spot foul. This last one that's a pet peeve of mine, they've got better on, but like ineligible lineman downfield or man downfield. Like, because teams would run these RPOs and linemen would be like 7 yards downfield. I'm like, you can't do that. So those are always my big gripes. And yeah, the Bills lose. I stared into the void. And I watched the Seahawks-Niners game, but like none of it registered with me. I was just staring. My phone was going off from a bunch of family and friends because everybody was like so livid at the non-call, but also the bad plays. And people are yelling about Allen and McDermott, trying to figure out who to blame. And then the Patriots won on Sunday, which made me want to throw myself through a window.
Ugh.
And then I watched Devontae Adams have a similar play to Brandon Cooks and have that be ruled a catch, which was also painful. That was also too, like, of course, there had to be a moment like that, which was annoying. I also think back to another moment, the Khalil Shakir catch.
Thank you.
In New England.
Yes.
With Marcus Jones.
Yes.
That was more egregious, and they gave that a catch. Like,
I said that verbatim to somebody today. Verbatim.
That I thought, hands down in that game, I was like, oh, that's an interception. I was like, we dodged a bullet there. Yeah. So I don't know how that's a catch, but this one's isn't. I also don't understand how throwing and catching the football is such an important part of the game. I don't understand how we're still trying to figure out what a catch is. Like, it shouldn't be arbitrary or it shouldn't be ambiguous. So that's a problem in and of itself. And then, so I watched football Sunday, frustrated, and then woke up Monday, and Kendall Mursky, friend of mine, friend of Cover One, used to be on the film room with myself and Eric, just texts me. I think it was like 9:28, and my phone goes off, and it's Kendall. And I knew it had to be something important because he's on the West Coast. So it's 6:28 his time. He's in Cali. So I'm like, uh-oh. Or maybe it's just something else. I opened my phone, and his text verbatim said, well, they just fired McDermott. And I was just like, shut up. Like, because I wasn't in that mode. And then everything is gone from there. And I understand the firing. We'll get into more of the details. I understand the firing, but I thought Bean was significantly culpable with blood on his hands, just like McDermott was. I didn't like Pagula's answer about parsing the two between roster construction and coaching. Again, we'll get into more details as we go forward here. I know I've spoken for too long. I'm just kind of in a very frustrated place with a lot with the team, and I'm very questionable about the direction. I'm worried about what head coach might come in. I'm worried about this team identity and philosophy that I think already needed changes. Granted, maybe it changes easier now because there's a different head coach, or Bean feels pressure and feels like he has to do some drastic things to shake things up. But I don't feel great about the team right now. I don't feel great about the direction. I don't feel great about the roster. I'm purely as a Bills fan, I'm very frustrated. And then as a football fan, from a schematic and X's and O's standpoint, I'm also frustrated with this team. So that's where I'm at.
All very fair points. Thank you for sharing your game day activity. I would like to say that you leaving the room is the reason that Josh Allen fumbled. So this is directly your fault.
So you'll also like this too. My wife the Bills she wasn't watching with me. She was doing something in the room. And she comes out to like the living room. She comes and she literally sits down, and James Cook fumbles. And I looked at her, and she already knew. She looked at me and she went, I have to go, don't I? And I was like, get out of the living room. And she knew. And so she left. And so she was also like making dinner throughout the game. And she was like afraid to come back out. And so I'd be like, no, it's okay. She'd come out and run real fast. I'd be like, they're about to start the drive. Get out. Like I was trying everything I could from a superstition standpoint.
Yep.
Yeah. So
funny. Something similar happened, just a sidebar real fast, earlier in the season when they played Miami on the road and the Bills started to look like they were coming back in that game. They're driving, they get into the not the red zone, but they crossed midfield and they looked competent again. And I was like, probably just one of those ugly games, slow start, not great, but they're going to win it. So then I'm like, a big play. I cannot remember the specific one, but a big play happens and I get up cheering. And my girlfriend, she comes out of the room and she hands me, and you see me wear it, that Bills hat, that not this one, but like the other one I have, the corduroy hat.
Oh, yeah.
So she hands it to me like slowly. She's like, put it on, like cheer him on. I'm like, you're right. I got to get optimistic.
No.
I put it on. Josh Allen fumble right then and there. In that very moment, it was the sneak where he kept going and the ball got punched out of his hand. Yeah, that happened right then and there. And I felt.
Can I top that?
Yes.
Yeah. I think you might know this. I don't send messages or respond to messages during games. I've upped that a little. Like I'll tweet now and I might respond to a tweet, but I won't text. I won't send a DM, anything. I won't answer a phone call, nothing. Because the last time I sent a text during a game, 2012, Bills are playing the Browns. CJ Spiller gets caught from behind, falls, like separates his AC joint or breaks his collarbone, something, got jacked up. And I literally was like, I will never text during a game again or send a message. Bills are playing the Jets. And it's confirmed week 18, the last week of the season this year. Bills are playing the Jets. And it's kind of confirmed they're going to play the Jags. So I'm like, I got to get JP Acosta. Like he's a Jags dude and he knows so much ball. I'm like, this is a perfect thing. But I was like, I should message him now. And I'm like, the game is fine. I send him the message to be like, hey man, are you free Tuesday? I hit send. The very next play, Max Hairston hurts his knee. And all jokes aside, I literally yelled at myself. I was like, you're such an idiot. Why would you do that? Why would you send the message? All you had, and like, I know it's probably coincidence, and I know I don't have that much control, but if you, like, I was just like, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm so frustrated. I want to punch myself in the face. So I thought that we can commiserate together, but I think mine is worse than yours, so don't feel too bad. Don't feel too bad.
How poetic is it? Truly, how poetic is it that what ultimately decided, I don't want to say decided the game, but kept the game alive for Denver was Trey White finally, after the durability that I was not expecting from him at all, to last this long, then to finally get hurt, and for Dane Jackson to have to come
and he only misses like one play. He misses one play. Just that play.
Yeah. A singular play. They asked Dane Jackson to play a one-on-one to Marvin Mims. I don't know if it was because they couldn't get out of the call or if it was because they felt confident because Mims was banged up, but it came down to corner. It came down to that position. And like, I am more frustrated because, again, I know you have only so many bodies you can play in a game and so many active roster designations. You mean to tell me we couldn't have figured out a way to get Dane Jackson in that final game and spare Hairston?
Tying into all of it. So, of course, Hairston's hurt. Of course, Darius Slay didn't want to come play here. Of course, Jamarcus Ingram got claimed elsewhere. Granted, he had been inactive before, so maybe he wouldn't have been the guy in that moment. Yeah, like that. Man.
It's poetic.
That and wide receiver. Like, of course, Mecole Hardman, like, drops. It's a bad ball from Allen. Not a great route from Hardman, but Hardman could have caught that ball in OT. Cooks had multiple plays he could have made, but like kind of didn't. And it's like, of course, all these positions kind of come home to roost in one way or another. Like plays that could have been made that were still hard to make, but still could have been made. Like 50-50, someone can make a play, but nobody makes a play. Yeah, that along with like, of course, the big and every end of the year game when the Bills lose, the pass rush disappears. There's no pass rush. There's no pressure on a quarterback. Like
and they had they really had no excuse. Even with Hoyt getting hurt, it drove me crazy because Ed Oliver came back. I wasn't expecting much from him to begin with, but like in these games, even when you bring the blitz, it just to me is really jarring that year after year, it still didn't get solved. And I can blame Beam for that. But to be honest with you, Joey Bosa was on that field. Greg Rousseau was on that field. The investments that they made in the D-line position, while we could argue about how good they are as pass rushers at this point in time, but Ogunjobi, like, I do have blame for Brandon Beane for the inability to have a viable pass rush. But I also just, I think it ties into really this entire conversation. It's another year of the same result, and it was why I cried for change, because I felt like why I was so frustrated when the game ended was because I felt like they were not going to do a thing, because they beat Jacksonville on the road and it got them the road win, which I thought mattered. It absolutely did in my eyes. But I thought that was enough to cement McDermott for 2 more years. Like, I really thought that was what we were going to see. But Pagula makes the decision and says enough is enough, and makes that decision to fire him after the game, which it wasn't just the game. He just said it really poorly in the press conference. It wasn't just Denver that made him fire Sean McDermott. It was a culmination of things, the Joe Verbiel playoff wall, as I said. But to see it happen again, to see each year just the same results, it was, and I made this comparison to a buddy of mine earlier in the week. The Sean McDermott tenure, the playoff results, it's like chewing a piece of gum. You start out minty, refreshing, it feels really good, but at some point it loses its flavor, and all you got is just flavorless gum that you kind of, you know what you're getting. It's bland, and it doesn't really have the same satisfaction it did when you first put it in your mouth. And I think it sounds reductive, but honestly, man, that's what it turned into, and I was sick of it. And I felt like we were about to see the Bills kind of become complacent with their regular season success, which I think is a death sentence for a team. And it's one thing to try and change. It's one thing to try and do more and see where you are, know when to say when, and make some shakeups. And they did. That's why I gave them benefit of the doubt. But this would have been a breaking point for me. But then they made the move. And I can say that I am happy they did it, not because I think Sean McDermott sucks. That's not it. Sean McDermott is a good coach. He's going to get another job, and I think he'll do really well. And I'm excited for his future. I wish him all the best. I'm thankful for Sean McDermott and what he did for me as a Bills fan, for the community. Tremendous person, tremendous coach. It's not that I think he's bad. I just think that there is such a thing as a plateau with coaches. I think you've seen some of the best coaches in the NFL, Andy Reid, have this, and it pans out for them, sometimes well, sometimes not. But I do think another opportunity elsewhere is deserved to get their mind right, to reinstill their values, and maybe get it right with a different roster. I thought it was time for a change. This game just fed into that more. They pulled the trigger, and I'm now left with a lot of questions. And as I said earlier, Anthony, and I want to push this back to you. The press conference, 2 days ago now. Not great, but what I really think after watching it was this really felt entirely from ownership. Now, I'm not saying that Brandon Beane is blameless or anything, but what it looked like to me, given the demeanor of the two at the podium, given Pagula speaking on behalf of Brandon with Brandon right next to him,
interjecting multiple times.
Yeah, like ad-libbing essentially. Like that was jarring for me, because I think when you see the dynamic in person, it makes you think like it's really weird that Brandon Beane would stick around. Like, people were calling him a snake, people were calling him this, that, and I'm like, I don't know if it's this. I can't run away with that yet. I don't know if it was like sabotage from Beane. And then I saw that and I'm like, I really think Pagula just made the decision right then and there, said, I'm doing it. Like, this is it. And you're just going to have to be okay with it, or you're going to go too. And Brandon Beane was kind of just like, like, I don't really know how to react. That's the vibe I get. But back to you, Ant, and take it away. Your thoughts, everything, presser, Pagula, everything that happened.
I did kind of come away with that as well. I think I said this in the film room. Like, I feel like after the presser, based on like Beane saying a couple things like this was Terry's decision, and like referencing it in different ways, like not making it a huge thing, but saying it almost in passing. Yeah, I got the feeling that on like Sunday or Monday, like Beane was in his office and Terry just like knocked. Terry probably didn't knock. He just probably just walks in. And he's like, "Hey, Brandon." And I could see Beane being like, and I could see Beane just being like, "Oh, hey, Terry, like, what's up?" And I could see him just being like, "I'm going to fire Sean. Come on." And Beane being like, "What?" And just be like, "Come on."
He just walks out like, that's just, it's not even.
Yeah, that's exactly it. He walks in and tells him he's going to fire him, and then like walks back out. And Beane is like, "What?" And then the question for me is like, does Beane immediately just okay, or does he like push back a little? Does he say like, no, like we shouldn't do that? We don't know any of those inner workings. And again, even the scenario that I posited just now also may not have happened. Like Terry could have sat down with Bean and been like, hey, I don't think Sean's the guy. What do you think? And they collectively came to the decision. But I think Terry pulled the trigger. I think Terry made the decision. He said it multiple times. He said, like, this was my decision. And granted, Bean could have helped him come to that decision. They could have collaborated and come to a consensus. But I really do think, as Terry said in multiple forms, like he went into the locker room. He saw how despondent everyone was and how listless Josh Allen was. And he thought of 13 seconds and missed field goals and all these quotes of like year after year, like having these losses and not being able to get it done. It's been, quote, it's been one year after another. It was the sense of how do we overcome this? And I just couldn't see us doing that with Sean. It was a culmination of things. That moment in the locker room was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I don't think it was the straw that broke the camel's back for Bean and Pagula.
Yeah.
I think it was for Pagula. And again, I think all jokes aside, I feel like, yeah, he just walked into him or brought, I don't know, like I can imagine Bean walking into the office and Terry just passed him in the hallway and like coming out of the bathroom after he just washed his hands. He could be drying him with paper towel and be like, hey, Brandon, I'm going to fire Sean. And Brandon and Bean's like, all right, morning. What? It's just like something like that. And my issue with all of it is, and I alluded to it earlier, I just don't. I'm fine with the firing of Sean McDermott. I've said this before. Yeah. Like, I think there is something to be said for like all the sustained success, but it comes down to, you know, how good is it to get to the playoffs every year? And Pagula said this, which I thought was fair. Like, he literally said, but, you know, it's not an easy decision. Trust me, you know, with that success. But what is success? Is success being in the playoffs 7 years in a row with no Super Bowl appearance? And that's a fair question. Is it?
Yeah.
Is to get to the Super Bowl, you got to get to the dance. And McDermott was getting to the dance every year. But then you're also kind of favored in that dance, and you just kind of continue to lose. And it's not only continuing to lose, it's continuing to have these ugly, tight losses. But then you could also devil's advocate that and be like, yeah, but they're having these tough losses because they're a good team. And it's just like the margins are so slim, but also how come they always keep coming up on the short end of the stick with those margins? So you could devil's advocate it any way you want and debate it. I was fine with the firing of Sean McDermott. I have been for a couple of years, but like you said as well, like I alluded to, I just think if McDermott goes, Bean goes, because they're both culpable. There's been so much collaboration between the two, even if one pounded the table more for other decisions than others. They built this team together, right? And I know there's been on the field schematic and in-game management failures from McDermott, but there's been multiple signings that have been poor from a player standpoint, but a contract standpoint. There's been extensions that have looked ugly as they've worn on. And just the roster building, I think, has also been an issue. And I'm not saying that's all on Bean, but I'm saying he played a significant role in all of that. And if Sean McDermott is culpable and his hands are bloody, Brandon Bean is significantly culpable and his hands are bloody as well. And this quote was the most frustrating one for me, because right after Pagula gives the most succinct and direct answer to the whole thing, where he says, great roster, good coaching, no Super Bowl appearance. And I can't emphasize, if I could put you all in that room at that moment after the game, it's like, how do we overcome this? It's been 1 year after another. It was the sense of how do we overcome this? And I just couldn't see us doing that with Sean. That's why I relieved him. It's not an easy decision. Trust me with that success. But what is success? Is success being in the playoffs 7 years in a row, no Super Bowl appearance. The follow-up question to that, they ask him like, oh, you know, you've referenced these shortcomings and you know, failures and coming up short. How much goes into the coaching versus roster construction being responsible for the team's shortcomings? And he says, quote, that's a hard question to answer. I don't know the answer to that. But you fired the coach because you blamed him for the shortcomings. So you should know how to answer that, because you looked at the team's shortcomings. Or at least
just have an answer ready.
Yes. Or you should have an answer ready.
Something out.
You looked at the team. If you're Terry Pagula, like, I understand your rationale. You looked at the team, right? And you said, and he had a quote earlier where he essentially gave majority of the sustained success to Bean in the personnel department and very little to McDermott, right? So clearly he viewed the team's success and consistency was majority, if not all, due to Brandon Bean and the personnel department, and the shortcomings were coaching and due to McDermott. I'm not faulting him for that, though I disagree with it. But you clearly decided that the roster was fine. The roster construction was fine. and that Bean was responsible for all the good and the great roster that you said, quote unquote, and you decided that Sean McDermott was responsible for the team's shortcomings, but you don't know how much goes into either. You don't know how to evaluate that decision. That to me was such a bad answer.
Yeah.
And that also doesn't like sit well with me. Like, you decided it was coaching, but you don't know how you don't know how it was coaching. You don't know how to look at a team and say, oh, it's the coaching versus the roster. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's bad. If I tell you, oh, like lemonade is better than apple juice, and then someone's like, oh, well, like, how do you decide that? And I'm like, well, I've never tasted apple juice. Then you can't, what? Like, what do you,
Yeah.
That's a huge important piece. So you don't know how to evaluate one of the juices, one of the things that you're saying is better than the other. What's happening? And that one doesn't sit well with me, along with, again, all the culpability and bloody hands stuff. But to your point, and I do agree with you, like, I'm fine with the idea of it's time for a change. I think the playoff wall and the proverbial or the Joe Verbial wall is a real thing. I just don't necessarily think the way Pegula got to that decision was sound. I don't think the process was necessarily sound. And that doesn't mean it won't be terrible. That doesn't mean the next coach won't catch fire and they go to the chip and do it all and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But this was wonky to me and worrisome. And I've had issues with coaching and schematic stuff, but I've also had issues with roster construction stuff. And a big part of the roster construction stuff is still with the team, and he got promoted.
So it's so funny that you say, like, kind of allude to bad process, but you could argue like good result if you were someone that was pro moving on from McDermott. Is bad process, good result not like emblematic of the entire season in a way, and how like poetic that is, that it comes down to this point? When you talk about that one response from Pegula, I think what it boiled down to me when reading into that was, when you're the owner and you're looking at the team from like a macro standpoint, which, that's pretty much how you start it when you have that much power and this many layers to your organization and all the complexities that go into it. Sometimes you have to simplify. I don't want to say it's the only way you approach it, but like when you've spent your entire time overthinking every single thing, every facet of your business, sometimes you have to take it to the simplified version of, which side of this was the real reason that we got the playoffs and got there consistently. Now, in his eyes, I was not there in the room. I did not hear his line of thinking. How I would just simply say, I'm not agreeing with it. By the way, I'm on your side. Like, I think it could have been answered in a different way. So when thinking about it, in his eyes, it's probably, well, okay, we're getting here every year, but we're not getting past this hump. At some point, if we're not getting past the hump, but we're able to get here, I feel like I can attribute that to, well, we have the bandwidth and the personnel and the people on this roster to get us there, but coaching isn't leading us past that point. And I think enough is enough given the reaction of these players and some of the frustrations, not even just this season, but in the past that Pegula has seen. Like, we could talk about Stephon Diggs a couple years ago after the Cincinnati game, where he was visibly frustrated at Josh Allen, but later through articles that we've read from people like Tim Graham, had just been pissed, just visibly angry. And in Pegula's eyes, that could be something of, look at this great player that was angry at the coaching staff because they lost the game and eventually wanted to leave. In my eyes, it's adding ammo to move on from him. So I'm not saying I agree with the quote. I'm not saying that I think it's a good answer. I just think that for him to kind of keep defending the roster build, he might just in his eyes feel more justified for it, for those examples. And I do think that there's something to be said for consistent losses in the playoffs. And I think that in the second half of the presser, it was a little smoother once you got through the initial shock and horror and you let Brandon Beane just kind of give the PR trained, proper answers, including the Coleman stuff, where you had Pegula kind of aligning with him and there was more of like a natural conversation. It felt like things just kind of subsided and it became normal, but you can't offset what was said in the beginning of that presser. And I do think that ultimately it made me feel like, while it was what I would argue the right decision to move on from the coach and just try fresh, the approach to it as far as like the emotional ties, the kind of like very defensive nature of the undertone of the presser, it just felt like it made the optics more muddy and put a lot of bad publicity on the team. And you never want to be at the forefront of that. I remember the Doug Whaley presser and the "we were not privy to" comment, which again, did I say privy, whatever.
You said privy. I wasn't going to correct you. Just let him
I don't know why I default to privy, by the way. I think I always thought that's how the word was said when I first saw it. Privy.
I've never heard someone not say privy. That's so funny.
And I don't know. I'm very tired and I need So
it's the end of the week. It's Thursday. It's
Yeah.
it's been a long
Yeah.
week. That's fair.
The Privy comment, like that was a really bad stain. But also, I could be lying to you. I'm not. I want to find a positive in all of this because I do think it exists. It's there. And the positive I'm going to find is one, it's a fresh start. Things got stale. I do think there is something to be said for the fact that they are allowing Brandon B to run this search. Brandon Beane is snake bitten from all the failure in the playoffs and probably extra motivated to make a massive change because of everything being said about him that he is very clearly aware of and given the keys to try again after McDermott moved on.
He's going to get a big name receiver somehow, some way. There's going to be
everyone is saying Justin Jefferson, and I'm totally believing it. I'm totally believing it. Like I actually think it one of a Brian Thomas Jr. or Justin Jefferson. That's a separate episode.
I'm out on BTJ after watching so much Jags tape. But I could respect the try.
Be out on him for a third. Okay. So anyway,
fair. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're out on him at a high price, but you're not out on him for a fair price where a team might be dejected and want to give him up. But then BTJ paired with, I don't know, maybe like a Romeo Dobbs or Alec
because if I'm that gets sexier. But even if I'm just thinking like, what are the odds that like if I take a receiver in the third round or any player, what are the odds that they're better than Brian Thomas, who I don't think too highly of, but like that's what I'm saying. Like so, I'm like okay, I could get on board for that.
When talking about the comments about Keon Coleman, which I just did not like that at all. It was unnecessary. It really didn't need to happen.
I thought Beane did a good job walking it back later and saying no, we just had him ranked differently because Pagula made it straight up sound like Brandon Beane did not want him at all.
Which isn't true at all. Correct. And people on Twitter were running it with it as if Brandon Beane, like I saw someone say like Brandon Beane made a documentary about himself, crediting himself for getting. How did you not watch the video you posted? Like it's intentionally dense, but besides the point, I think there's something to be said for them talking about how the coaching staff had sway in the decision to draft him, because what I also think, and I think it would justify a lot of Beane's anguish and a lot of his like really like defensiveness, is maybe giving too much credence to a coaching staff he very much trusted into making that decision for Coleman, but not just Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Josh Palmer, archetypes that maybe Joe Brady really wanted, that he was pounding the table for, that McDermott sided with him on. And he said, okay, if you do it, I trust you. Let's get this done. And it bit them. And maybe that's why you see these contracts have outs for them financially, where, hey, it's a lot of money. It's not working out. I also know I can get out of this in maybe 2 seasons and have the money back to be able to kind of make it more palatable for a future season. I want to give some benefit of the doubt because given everything we know about them and that dynamic and what very much seemed like a multi-layered decision on the player. Again, Beane definitely had him on his list, Keon Coleman, but it wasn't his top. I just do wonder if that means for the next guy, there's more synergy, more trust, and maybe that person's better at really finding the players or scouting players, whether it's on free agency, whether that's in the draft, that cater to the roster a little better. So it's just things I want to kind of throw out there as a potential positive. It could fail. This whole entire thing could blow up in their face, but I do think there is a realistic path where making the right coaching hire is better optics for them outright, but also a better decision long-term. And really, apart from that, it's so much information to take in this week. It's been just such a whirlwind. And now we move on. And Anthony, I mean, anything else you want to add on the presser, Sean McDermott's departure, anything you don't think we covered? What do you got?
No, I think we hit everything. I do think, again, it's new. Like there's somebody new is taking over. There's going to be new people running the ship. So that could be good. It also could be the same. It also could be awful or worse. Like, and I'm not saying that to say, because it is going to be awful or worse. You never know. Sometimes the grass is greener and sometimes it's not. And even the Keon, I thought the whole Keon thing from the presser just got so blown up, like because Pagula misspoke. Beane walked it back and said what actually happened, but nobody covered that because they already took the misspoke and ran with it and memed it and did all the things with it.
Same with the playoff wall thing, by the way. Everyone was like, you did this after one game? And then it was like, no.
Correct. And he said like year after year and like 13 seconds, missed field goals, the catch, all these things that he was mentioning, right? Again, I don't agree with his process and what his thinking, but I understood where he was coming from or what he was trying to get at. But even just the Keon thing too, the back end of it, I think that happens all the time. Like if you get 10 people in a room and there's 2 prospects, 5 might like one, 5 might like the other, 7 might like one, 3 might like the other,
Yeah.
or it could be 9 to 1. It could be anything. You could have another prospect that they like better. Like it's one of the most like famous things every year. Like prospect evaluation is not an exact science in any way, shape, or form. If it was, everybody would have 100% draft hit rate. Right. But these are still people that are evaluating them. The players are variables in and of themselves, all of that. So the Keon thing and being like, oh, well, Bean didn't have him as high. The coaching staff did. I'm sure there were picks that the Bills made that Bean had high and the personnel had high that the coaching staff didn't. Like that to me is just regular. Like that's football. That's like no news at all. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't see that as like any big thing because, and again, that's also tied into why I thought if one goes, the other goes, because there is so much interconnectedness and there's so many webs that have been woven together between the two. And I don't think you can really parse that. Like Bean even said, he literally says, quote, ultimately, I'm not turning in a pick for a player that I don't think we can succeed with. So don't misunderstand that. So at the end of the day, like he still signed off on the Keon deal, or could, man, maybe in the presser, you could say like, oh, he's probably just saying that to be nice. Okay, then we can't trust anything he said in the entire presser. If that's the case, like, I just think there was too much mess and it made sense to kind of clean it all at once, but they didn't. Yeah. I get it. I get why from their end. I understand why from their end. I just disagree with it. But we'll see. Again, they could be completely wrong here and they could end up for the better for it, or they could be completely right here and they could end up worse. For all we know, Brandon Bean is the problem, right?
Right.
And they could still win a Super Bowl with a new coach. And for all we know, Sean McDermott was the problem, and they can end up worse with a new coach. Football's full of variables. You never know, positively or negatively.
It's an offseason of ambiguity. We're not going to have an answer for what is likely more than a week. If there is a candidate that they're really keen on one of the championship teams, we're not going to know for 2 weeks. And I think that that's a very interesting decision and situation that they find themselves in, because now, do you want to play the waiting game for a candidate that it's very likely, given some of the odds and given some of the like whispers on social media and from reporters, multiple teams are interested in? And this is the risk you take when you are ownership moving on from a coach. This is we have to see if the grass is greener. We're crossing the fence. We don't know yet, but this is what happens when you shake things up. And we just have to hope that it's the correct decision. And we have to hope that they hire the right candidate. And there are a few that I absolutely have a preference for. I think there are better options than others from the perspective of coaches, from systems that I think would align well with the skill set of Josh Allen and the sustainability of what he can do into his 30s, which you have to be cognizant of. I think they match the urgency of, we know that this quarterback is aging and we need to get him a Super Bowl. So there are just better candidates for me. But Ant, I'll share mine, but I want you to give me just a few names. And you shared a list on Twitter that I think we're pretty aligned on. And like, no, I'm not saying that I put these candidates down just because of your list. Like I saw multiple names in the initial one where I was like, yeah, including one that got hired by Tennessee. I actually wanted Robert Saleh. He was in my candidacy too. And people, again, would run and be like, what? He was awful in New York. It's like, I don't think the events of the Jets were Robert Saleh's doing. Correct. I think that was ownership and GM meddling in his affairs. I think he individually is a very good coach. But Ant, give me your names, as many as you have. If it's one, that's fine. If it's three, that's fine. Who do you really like potentially for this Bills vacancy?
Yeah, at that time, I had Saleh on my list. I had Jesse Minter on my list. Both of those guys are gone now. Jesse Minter accepted the Ravens job today.
Yep.
And then Saleh, accepted the job, I think later that night. Yeah, Tuesday night. I think I posted that tweet during the day, Tuesday or Monday, and then he got hired that same night, whatever it was. I think like a lot of people, and if you've watched this guy's coverage, I started talking about Clint Kubiak and the Seahawks offense in like October because I liked what they were doing. And also part of it is for me, like as a schematic person, Give me a piece of like the Shanahan tree. If I can get somebody from the Shanahan tree or the McVay tree, not that it's a guarantee, right? But I just think Allen would succeed really well. I think it would be good for Allen. I think it would be a good seamless fit for this offense with what Kubiak does and who he is and what, that system is, formational and personnel manipulation and dictation to a defense, using heavy personnel to generate explosives, but also run the ball. Less of a gap scheme focus. If you don't know Kubiak, the Shanahan system, outside zone is their bread and butter, but he does a really good job marrying the run and the pass and putting defenses in run pass conflict and building counters off the outside zone, like specifically bootlegs and play action in general, which Joe, we love. His ability to generate explosives on early downs, all that stuff. And so Kubiak is towards the top. And I also do think they're going to lean towards an offensive hire, so I kind of am right there. Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator for the Rams, is my second at this point now with everyone else that's off the board. I like what he's done. Also, Chris Shula has like a dream scenario for me. Like I would love Chris Shula to come in and then Nate Scheelhaus, the passing game coordinator for the Rams, comes in as the OC. He's also somebody I've been talking about since about October. Somebody, I forget who, and I want to say this every time in case this person comes back around and sees somebody else mentioned him in like the chat in one of the episodes of Disguise Coverage. And it was such a great poll then. So I want to give that person a bunch of credit as well. But yeah, I would love Shula with Scheelhaus. The only issue with Shula is, I mean, there's issues with Kubiak too, but a big one for Shula is, schematically, like, the Bills don't really have the horses that the Rams have. Not even don't really have. They don't have the horses that the Rams have. And then the type of defense that they're built to be, like a 4-down, over front, one gap penetrating type of deal. Like Shula is a big, 5-down, Wade Phillips type of scheme and strategy type of guy. And then Fangio coverage stuff on the back end. It's a really cool combination, what he does between the two. But I just don't know how that scheme meshes with what the Bills have.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, but you could still bring in a guy and like revamp the scheme and bring in new players and body types. But the Bills don't have a bunch of draft capital or financial capital to make that happen. So is this one of those things where like you give the job to Shula, but we don't really get to see his defense until 2027 or 2028 when he can really mold it and get the right players and body types in.
Good point.
And then I think anytime you go with a defensive coach, the odds are, okay, the Bills offense, Josh Allen, the offensive coordinator is probably going to get some head coaching looks every, 1 to 5 or 2 to 4 years. So then you have a rotating, revolving door at offensive coordinator. Do you really want that? So, okay, maybe you should lean offensive. So right now for me, I'm really, again, I have my initial list, but a bunch of those guys have gone by the wayside. Mike McDaniel has gone by the wayside as well. Even though I didn't really want him as head coach, I wanted him as an OC, but I would have taken him as a head coach because I really value his mind and what he is schematically on the offensive side of the ball. So right now for me, it's down to Clint Kubiak and Chris Shula. I also really like Nate Scheelhaus. He got a head coaching interview with the Ravens. I don't know if he's ready. He's never been a coordinator at the NFL level. He's only been the pass game coordinator, but you listen to him speak, you watch him break down. He builds the play, the play calling sheets and the playbooks and everything for McVay the same way that Liam Cohen used to do when he was with McVay. I just value his mind and how he attacks and what he does. So I guess he would be kind of like third or a wild card for me right now. I don't want Joe Brady and I don't want Brian Daboll. And I know both of those guys are up there right now in names. I wouldn't completely hate it, but I wouldn't really like it. Especially Daboll, just with how he went out in New York and all the reports and then watching that team. I just think on the field, it was bad. Off the field, it was apparently worse. Like Malik Neighbors is calling you out already as a rookie, saying that like the quarterbacks aren't the problem and kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's the coach. There's just so much messiness and muddiness on and off the field with him that it scares me and I don't want that. But I don't know, maybe it'd be different here because there's more structure because you have Josh Allen. I don't know, but yeah, I think I'd rather have Brady than Daboll, and I also don't want Brady as the head coach. Right. So that's kind of where I'm at overall, just because a lot of guys who I initially liked are off the table. So I'm sticking with my initial list, but it's whittled down because guys have gotten tired.
Yeah. I had some similar names. I loved Jesse Minter, and I thought of all the defensive candidates that you could potentially bring in that would actually be exciting to me, because there are definitely defensive candidates out there that run similar schemes, that have similar like approaches to the roster build. But he was the one that felt like the best passing of the torch type defensive coach, because I feel like with Minter's attack minded, but also very savvy with how he's disguising coverage. And I thought that would be like a perfect transition, because that's really something that McDermott in the back half of the year was, not that he never did it before, but was really gearing and ramping up a ton. So I was like, well, if you want like the evolution of that, go get this young defensive mind who had tangible results in LA. Yes, the roster build, their defensive line was stacked with talent, but I do think there's something to be said for how good his defense was and how much he was getting out of the front seven and the back end. I loved him. Him going to Baltimore, that's the best hire, in my opinion, they could have possibly made, with the talent they have on defense and the safety room with Starks, Hamilton, and you have like that defensive line. Madubuike's, current status is really weird and murky. But even then, I still think Minter's going to maximize it. So that's a tremendous hire for Baltimore. I think, just to start with some of the less desirables first. Yeah, I don't want Joe Brady. I don't want Lou Anarumo.
I would take Anarumo.
Would you? Really?
I don't favor it. He's just such a good big game matchup DC, and I trust him so much, but he's never been a head coach, I don't think, anywhere. And he's a bit older. I don't know who he'd bring in on offense. So there are hesitations for me with that. Me being comfortable with Anarumo for head coach is because I wanted him to come in as defensive coordinator last offseason. I wanted him and Saleh, one of them, to be the DC. I knew it wasn't going to happen because McDermott and Babich and all that, but I just think like come playoff time, where this team should make the playoffs again, I just think Lou Anarumo is right up there, almost like a tier below or close to the Steve Spagnuolo tier, where like, okay, he's going to take what you do best and mitigate it, and he's going to try and put you in hell, and he's probably going to put you in hell. And I just value him as a matchup big game guy. That's where that comes from. Sorry, I didn't mean to step
No, you're good. And I do agree with that part. I would be fully, if they go offense here, I would be fully open to a lateral move for Anarumo and having him as a DC. I just don't want him as a head coach for that reason, mainly because, again, to me, it's not, I don't want to act like I know Lou Anarumo. I don't want to act like I've been there in rooms with him or anything like that. But to be at the age you're at and not have a head coaching opportunity, and not land one, it does, in my eyes, kind of wave something of a red flag.
And it was weird.
That could be speculation.
I kept thinking, like, I was like, well, he's going to get one. He's going to get one. And I think
after 21, it felt like he would.
The only one I remember, I think he was interviewed, he was interviewed for the Cardinals job, and they went with Gannon. Over him. Yeah. But that's the only one I remember. I don't remember, almost to the point that I was like, are him and Spags both just like, no, we're not taking interviews. No, I'm just going to stay where I am. Because I was really like, I thought somebody was going to give him a shot. And the only one I remember happening or sticking was the Cardinals one.
And maybe it's possible that he thought he would have more prospects after another year, but then Cincinnati's roster build on defense declined. And I still think Anarumo's a tremendous defensive coach. I was praising the move for Indianapolis last offseason. And I think that the flexibility he has, how he is very embryonic in the sense of like, I want to take away your matchups, but I will do it game by game. I don't need to be bound in my ways. I want to know what you're doing, and I want to take that away. I love that mentality for defense. I know it's a bit harder to implement and instill because so much goes into it from a communication perspective, from how many people you have to get on and off the field and real-time adjustments. It's difficult, but when you can pull it off, it's tremendous to watch, and I think it is going to keep you in any game. And when you talk about what the Bills' shortcomings have been in the playoffs, it has been defense. So, like, there is a justification in my eyes to go, oh, proven defensive play caller in the playoffs, like, that does have a lot of weight, but I just don't think I would go with him. And talking about Joe Brady, again, like I've seen Joe Brady's body work. I don't think he's a bad play caller. I just don't like the idea of him as head coach. I don't like the idea of just going with the layup easy move, and layup not in a good way. More like it's just like uninspired, easy to make that promotion for a guy that I feel like has his shortcomings that we've seen up close, and every play caller does. But the shortcomings he had frustrated the hell out of me. And if I am to continue on my stance, which I will, that he had a lot of say in some of the personnel decision-making on offense from a draft and free agency perspective, I'm not a fan of continuing on with that. I supported it in the beginning. I was okay with the slot machine and thinking that would work. It didn't work. And it proved to have major issues, including durability concerns, effectiveness concerns. I bought into it. I admit that it didn't work in my eyes. they weren't a bad offense, but it was an offense definitely limited. I would prefer to just go get a fresh voice. So to talk about, and the Brian Daboll thing, it started out looking like he was going to be there for a decade. I mean, the way that he was talking to his players and like the galvanized locker room, the optimism, his name in the news cycle all the time. I loved what he was doing. I was supporting it. I was cool with it. You know, I come from a family of Giant fans. My dad was optimistic. They won a playoff game. He was so happy. I was like,
they made it to the divisional
round. Yeah. And I was like, dude,
Philly.
this house money, even if you get boat raced in this game, which they did, like you should be very happy with this season. Like you have a good thing going. How it fell apart was so jarring. And I don't 100% blame Brian Daboll. I don't. There was way more there than just him. A lot of dysfunction. But the way it ended, some of the PR issues, some of the like Wink Martindale running off the grid out of nowhere and like that whole situation. And then like the headset issue where he was apparently like chewing out all of his coaches. And again, you talked about neighbors, but also like the Jackson Dart Blue medical tent conundrum in the Thursday. These are not things that
or just trying to like run Jackson Dart into a wall like every week.
That is my issue. I feel like I've seen enough from him in a very recent coaching stint to make me off put from him being the head coach. I wouldn't mind Brian Daboll as offensive coordinator. Same vein as Lou Anarumo. I think there's something to offer there. But I just don't think I will be over the moon about it as a head coach. I won't be depressed. I could see the vision. They did work well together. There were positives. I would have my concerns. I would be a little more happy with it. And this is apparently like the common pairing rumor that like is going around, but I've seen it floated around. Davis Webb potentially being on a staff. I would like that. I know. To me, it's almost like kind of in the same vein of like Udinski and Shieldhouse, not from an actual scheming perspective.
But there's even like less. There's like even less of a body of work. I just can't like positive or negative. I just can't. I don't know. Davis Webb could be sick. He could also be like nothing. Like he's 30 and he's been a coach for like what 2 years or something. Granted, maybe he was more of a coach even when he was a player because he wasn't really playing. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. There's just so much unknown. I don't get the and no one's told me anything of substance. So anyone who's ever like, oh, what about Davis Webb? Or I think they should get Davis Webb. And I'm like, why? And there's never any answer that I'm like, oh, got it. Or like, oh, understood. I just don't. I don't know. I'm not saying it's horrible. I just don't get it.
No, I get it. I think for me with Davis Webb, apart from the youth infusion and kind of like the same arguments you would have for, again, like Udinski, Shieldhouse, it's more like who you're working with, what they're allowing you to do, and are you getting an endorsement from them? And all those boxes are checked for me. And even if it's a smaller body of work, I think he's going to get an OC opportunity. And I wouldn't mind that being in Buffalo, where it's not only just knowledge of the organization you worked in, but really where you're coming from, which is that Denver scheme, which I just think sets up a measurably high floor for a quarterback, where if you're talking about concerns over Josh Allen pressing, I like that scheme for Josh. You know, a lot of design, like kind of similar, but not the same to the Kubiak thing. Again, I'm not trying to make a 1-for-1 comparison, but again, like getting your quarterback on the move, trying to get him to throw on the run, using his legs often, setting it up where those small plays can still get you a few yards and you're not really putting yourself in a bind to take losses frequently. You know, a lot of misdirection play action, like these things, and quick timing and really rhythmic passing. Like, I like that build for Allen. I like that he comes from that. If he was an OC, I would be okay with it with Daboll. I think that could work. As a head coach, I'm open to it. But again, like that's a very big unknown, so I understand that. Going to the main one, it's Kubiak. I'm going to like it's Clint Kubiak. It just, to me, I don't think there is a singular coaching candidate on the market right now that makes more sense. I just don't think there is. I think when you talk about, again, what the organization is trying to instill right now, it's a sense of urgency for getting Josh Allen a Super Bowl ring. How are you going to do that? Well, it's very likely you want to pair him with an offensive play caller who's forward thinking, ahead of the league trends, doing the things that you see that are like, wow, this is going to help us sustain no matter what our roster build is, because this guy can just create and just get the most out of every skill set, and we could trust him to maximize them, and we could give him the keys to figure this out and put his staff together. He is a first-time head coach. He will be. So I understand the inherent risk of a first-time head coach. I would also like to point out that the man that just left after nearly a decade of success, yes, no Super Bowl, but regular season success, was a first-time head coach with at the time, a younger candidate that had at the time, because it seems like forever ago and it's like kind of aged, but really one that felt like more modern and got you away from the Rex pitfall and the ugliness of that and went back to that like 4-3, but brought the nickel on. And again, it's not like a nickel had never been known about, but like them drafting Taron Johnson and having that skill set in mind and really getting like just the most out of it. I think this could be your offensive version of that. I think what you are allowing is this franchise to pick a coach where if he is doing all the play calling, the buffer for how much he needs to really work with as far as creativity and overcoming roster deficiencies. Well, you have Josh Allen, and Josh Allen can erase a lot of things. He can cause a lot of issues, but he can also erase a lot of issues just by being an elite alien quarterback. So when you have a good mind paired with Josh Allen, I think what you remove is the buffer you would get with a defensive coach, like you were alluding to, where like the scheme might take a couple years to click, or in the case of like a Rex Ryan in the past, that just never clicked. It never meshed. They never adjusted the personnel. It failed miserably. I think you can avoid that ugly, awkward, long form transition because what you have is a good enough quarterback, a good enough play caller, a really forward thinking, again, like ahead of the curve or at the very least modern system with personnel on your roster now that I think would cater to it as well. Yeah. I think you could still go heavy.
What he's doing in Seattle already fits with how the Bills are built right now. Like it would be a very seamless transition.
Yeah. Heavier personnel, using your tight ends. I think the only thing is you got to rebuild the wide receiver core, which we think they're going to do anyway. Yeah. No one makes more sense than Clint Kubiak. It's the no-brainer knockout slam dunk hire. So it's not going to happen. It's going to be Brian Dable, but I would like it. It's going to be Dable, but I would like it to be Clint Kubiak. And I don't think I can add anything more to it. It makes too much sense for me. The only other name I had on this that is something of a curveball, Anthony Campanelli. I like him a lot. Yeah. And I think also kind of in the similar comparison to Jesse Minter, a nice passing of the torch option from McDermott to him, where I don't think you have to drastically alter your personnel. I think you'll make subtle tweaks. But when you talk about kind of what they were doing philosophically, it was a lot of that game feel, real-time adjustment, not really setting too many pressures not really setting too many 5, 6, like blitz, extra body pressures, rather Sims creepers. But again, just a more modern defensive mind, mixing of coverages, someone to keep the deception alive. And I think would be something where if you're talking about selling the locker room on a new coach, well, here's a young guy, rah guy, players love playing for him, and he has tangible results from Jacksonville. And I think it wouldn't be too much of a far cry or learning an entirely new playbook. You're still going to have to learn new calls. You're still going to have to learn new things, but maybe less of a harsh transition. I just wanted to mention him. He got some nods for head coach. Do I think he gets it? Probably not, but I would definitely be excited if they interviewed him, and I welcome him. And
I think he got
Arizona, I think, is interviewing him.
He had a second head coach. I saw it randomly. Yeah, maybe Arizona. He was having his a second. I'm trying to find it.
That'd be an awesome hire for them too.
It would be. They need just like stability. I think maybe it was Arizona where he had a second interview. He had a second interview with somebody, and I thought it was reported that he was getting close, which is why I kind of crossed him off. Not crossed him off, but I was like, oh, that seems like it's kind of done. But I think he'd be a real interesting mind. Like again, that approach, the meshing of multiple defensive trees and systems and schemes, the amalgamation of it all, as Cody Alexander referred to it when I had him on my show. And yeah, what he did with that Jags defense, I thought it was really cool, really fun schematically. I like the way he approaches the game, what he says. I would be on board for that. Yeah, I think maybe it was the Cardinals. Maybe he had a second interview.
It is the Cardinals. I just looked it up. He had a second interview with them. I think it was today or it's scheduled. He had 2.
He also got, he's in his second interview with the Cardinals. He also interviewed with the Ravens. I would also not mind that at all. Plus he's got he's like a real, Jersey Italian. I just like though. Yeah. Get some of that in there.
I think it was the episode I did with Travis Holmes. I don't know, but I feel like if you are just like a Northeast, like New York, New Jersey, even like early Pennsylvania, like the Philadelphia area Italian, and you get into defensive coaching, you're just guaranteed to be good. Like signed off by me, an Italian, saying this. Like Vic Fangio, Lou Anarumo. Now you got Anthony Campanelli.
Yeah, give me some of as a fellow Sicilian, give me some of that. Yeah, give me some Jersey Italian up in here.
Yeah,
I want it. Give me some of that fire and some of that. Oh yeah, give me that all day.
The king of breadsticks. But anyway, I was
to say nothing but breadsticks, pasta sauce, and blending of multiple schemes on the back end. That's all we need.
Dude, I'm just saying, carbohydrates, they're used for energy. What's got carbs? Spaghetti. We could
Bang.
I'm just saying, keep that in mind, Brandon Bean. But
Maybe
I
that's
just think it's
McDermott's thing. Not enough spaghetti.
not enough
Not enough
spaghetti.
spaghetti
Listen,
in the locker room.
are we getting these many injuries because we're too focused on fats and protein from all those wings and we just don't have enough spaghetti? Makes you think.
Is it the problem that this Bills team hasn't had enough noodle based dishes regularly for them? I mean,
Everyone needs noodles, man.
everyone needs them. Some garlic bread, some marinara, like just
Gnocchi.
like hook it up. Oh,
A
good
good gnocchi
gnocchi.
and sausage. That's like a weekly dinner I cook. Like it's one of the best meals ever, and it's so
I love
easy.
gnocchi. I'm
Yeah.
such a sucker for like anything like that, like any like noodle or like type of this is gonna be the right way to phrase, it, but like a gnocchi or like a dumpling or a
Yes.
ravioli or like a stuffed
Yes.
shell, anything that is like a doughy thing that is filled
Hmm.
with something else, I'm all about. Sign me up.
Yeah. Oh, it's my favorite thing in the world. I did like a while ago. I was talking to Bruce Nolan on like Twitter, and I gave my pasta rankings. I don't remember what it was, but gnocchi, ravioli, tortellini, fusilli,
Oh, nice.
and cavatello. Cavatello is
Oh,
up there
good
too.
call. I
Yeah,
like that you mentioned
it's
tortellini. Tortellini is an underrated. Tortellini and
dude.
ravioli are my two favorite.
Tortellini is unbelievable, and if you have it al dente, it is tremendous. And you talked about
When I,
dumplings. I just gotta.
oh,
We're getting so off, and I know I have to wrap the show up. But
I don't care.
there is a place in my hometown. I will shout them out. No one is ever going to go visit it. Cheng Ying, best dumplings on planet Earth, and
Mm.
I will stand by that. You, whatever you're thinking in Buffalo, wherever you've been, I would contend Cheng Ying's dumplings are better. I stand on that.
Oh,
They're steamed dumplings specifically. They are the size of your palm. They're
yeah.
huge, filled to the brim, flavorful, seasoned. Shout out. I had to
Oh,
plug it. But
I had when I lived in the Heights in New York, I lived on 181st and St. Nicholas. There was a Dominican pizza spot down the
oh,
street that made banging pizza, but they also made pasta. And one time, my wife, well, she was my girlfriend at the time, she got the grilled chicken tortellini, and this thing, man, like slapped to a level that I was just not ready for. It's the best tortellini I've had in my life. There's a
damn.
place here in Buffalo called Bobby J's. I get this grilled Cajun chicken tortellini, and like the Cajun seasoning mixes with the Alfredo sauce, and it just becomes this amazing like Cajun Alfredo. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, and I don't remember the name of the spot. It was, bro, like I mean, the food in
Yeah.
the Heights was crazy. Like it's the thing I miss most about what not living in New York and especially the Heights in general. But yeah, like that.
Yeah.
And when every time I think of tortellini, I think of that spot and that dish. Oh, I can picture the tin it came in and just
Hmm.
how I'd be mad. I'd be on my way home from work and I'd text my wife and be like, "Oh, you gonna come over?" And she'd be like, "Yeah." I'd be like, "Tortellini?" And she'd be like, "Yeah." And I was just like, "Oh,
Uh
they're so good."
love it. That's love right there, man. Just like not even having to say anything other than tortellini and knowing
Mhm.
exactly what you mean. It's the
Or
city is
a
tremendous.
couple times I'd be like, "Oh, what do you want to get?" And she'd be like, "I'm already at the spot getting tortellini. I'll meet you at your apartment when
Incredible.
you get back." And I'd be like, "Oh, yes." Like just man.
The city is it has my heart forever, and some of the food I've had there is incredible, and it's worth it if you are a Buffalonian ever planning a trip. But Anthony, I mean, we've talked about a lot tonight. It's again a very dark time in I guess
Mhm.
Bill's history, but it doesn't have to be forever. And for as many negatives as we have encountered, or at least that we've speculated, there is a very real chance that this could work out. And
Mhm.
we've talked about teams in the past and franchises in the past that maybe the rosters were better, and I wouldn't contend that, but ones that got galvanized from bringing in a new coach in a window and it did work out for them. Will it happen? We'll have to see. I'm going to wait and see. I'm going to hope that they pick the right candidate for the job. I'm going to have to trust it no matter what they go for. But all we can hope for now is a sound process and someone that can maximize the team the way they best see fit. And in my eyes, I think that's on offense and getting someone to just help you get through Josh Allen's 30s in the best way possible and hopefully bring a ring. Do you have any final thoughts? Or if not, plug anything you got going on where people can find you.
No, I think for final thoughts, I'm good. Yeah, I don't think everything that's happened, it could be a positive, it could be neutral, it could be negative. It's literally just time will tell, which is super unfortunate. And yeah, I have a lot of thoughts schematically on this team and fixes that need to happen, but those are bridges to cross at another time and deep dives that'll be had in another time. And I'm sure I'll be doing that in multiple forms and fashions on my shows that, you mentioned a plug. I host a show called Disguise Coverage live every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. uploaded to all the podcasting apps and platforms right after that when the show was finished. I'm also the co-host of the Cover One Film Room. That film room show is all film based. My show, Disguise Coverage, is film based and analytics, advanced metrics, a combination of all of those things. Sometimes I break down tape on Disguise Coverage. Sometimes I don't. It's always broken down in the film room. So that's me. And then you can find me on Twitter, pro__ant. That's pro 2 underscores ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at proant. No underscores there, just PROANT. Pretty much everything I post there is just film, breaking down plays, scheme, structure, individual player evaluation. And I'll be diving into the free agent class and draft class. I already started doing some KC Concepcion stuff for college football, so we're already in the process.
Yeah. Already, it's very early, and I still have to start mine as well. But big fan based on what I've seen so far. Pretty ironic. Pretty ironic. His name's Casey Concepcion. If he gets drafted,
I know. You know what's funny is people.
His name's Kevin, I think.
Right.
But
I tweeted only one clip because I started just doing basic stuff, but there were these 2 back-to-back plays that happened against Notre Dame that I thought were really funny. So like I put them out, and then I forgot that I had put that tweet out and post, and people like I kept seeing I was in like Twitter, and I would go to my notifications, and I would see like KC does blah blah blah, or KC is this, and I was like, why does everybody keep talking to me about the Chiefs? And then like I was like, oh, and I went into like one of the comments, and I was like, oh, it's for the Concepcion post. Like it like I wasn't ready for that, and I didn't even click.
Yeah, and it's cool too because with this draft class again, I have not started, so I want to just preface with that. But there's just some observation I have from the very brief like things I've read and seen about these prospects. It seems like a pick 'em as far as like pick your favorite based on just what your team needs. There isn't like I would say Jordan Tyson's probably like the running favorite to be the first receiver taken, but even then I've seen people refute it's Carnell Tate. The combine hasn't happened. That'll probably separate a lot of people. But like it seems to me like it's a lot of early talent, but the talent is pretty widespread. There isn't like a Jeremiah Smith, even though that's a year from now. I don't know why I just used his name, but still like
like some generational like hands down one, yada yada. I feel like more often than not, I feel like Tyson was like the hands down one bona fide stud coming into the year. And then Carnell Tate and that Ohio State offense just kind of got people's attention. I feel like Carnell Tate is more like, I think he's good. But I think he's more of like the high floor and sexy type of pick now. Whereas like Tyson was like this high ceiling, just like wild dude. Like when you watch him, Arizona State just also had a bad year, kind of fell apart. But there's multiple like wide receiver 1 candidates in this draft class. There's some good 2s and 3s. It's a good class for that. And I don't know, maybe Ruben Bain falls because his arms are short, and I would love for the Bills to take him. I hope nobody yells at me because they all think the Bills need a receiver.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Ruben Bain's a stud. Messidor I like too.
Monster. I'm so upset. Him and Messidor are both going to the Senior Bowl.
I know.
And so, of course, the year I'm not there as a Canes fan, oh my God, that would have been killer.
Also, like, I hate that the only true knock I've seen on Messidor so far is that of his age. I'm like, okay, so he's 25, so he's ready, so he's more developed, and that he's closer to having a problem. Like, yeah, okay, 10 years from now, he might be either out of the league or close to end. I don't care. Like, if I get nasty, 6 great years out of him, okay, I'm cool with it, but all this to say, we're beginning the prep work. And if you guys are not following Anthony, please do so. Again, I've learned a lot about this sport in a more critical, insightful way because of Anthony's work. He does a tremendous job in his show, in the film room with Eric Turner, and just, again, in all the work he's putting out for scouting talent potentially for the Bills and really just giving you insight around the league. He is very much worth your time, your energy, and your follow. And I appreciate you, Anthony, for joining me tonight. Thank you, as always, for lending me your time. I know this one's running a little late. For me, you can find me on Twitter. It happens
every time we do this. It
does happen every time. I kind of accept, like, when I say an hour, I do mean an hour, but like also I kind of accept it's going to turn to like an hour and a half.
Well, not even the hour, like the hour 15 isn't crazy, but we're talking off air for like 20 something minutes before, and that always happens to us. And I blame myself for that. But then like we just get into the moment, and then it's like, oh crap, we should probably start the show.
Just a bit of banter, but I hope you know what I'm referencing. But anyways, I am Joe DeRosa. You could find me on Twitter/X at @show_DeRosa. And again, I appreciate all of you. It's dark times. Maybe they get better. We'll have to see. I know it's ambiguous, but be nice to people. There's going to be a lot of Twitter arguments. Try to avoid them. Just the war months are coming. Just don't get involved with that. Have some fun. Wait and see what happens. And yeah, I don't really have anything else other than I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful weekend. Next week, I am not planning to do an episode because I have obligations. However, if they hire a coach next week, I will make an exception and I will adjust my schedule. But I am aiming to be back in 2 weeks. Ideally, by that time, they will have a candidate or a coach, not a candidate. And I will do an episode to react to that. But for tonight, I wish you all well. Anthony, thank you again. I don't know if you saw today's Miami presser, which how it ended. So I'm going to end the show in honor of them.
Okay.
I just have something to say.